My name is Brian Lee Meng, and I'm a trainer with transformativelearnings.com. It's a learning and development company. I'm a certified NLP practitioner and I have a master's from UKI. Today I'll be talking to you about stress management with a focus on stress testing. And if I do my job right, as I intend to, by the end of these 15 minutes, you will have the skills to do a stress test on your own, without errors, but at room temperature, because we're going to use a stress sensor. Okay. Now, you guys can see the photos on the wall. The gentleman on my leftmost, his name is Dr. Walter B. Cannon, and in 1950, he coined the phrase, fight or flight response. Now, how many of you have heard that? Yeah? Fight or flight response. Now, that was a time where there was a lot of research, a lot of medical research, a lot of pioneering work done. The guy next to him, he's also a very, very famous researcher at the same time. His name, Dr. Ivan P. Pavlov. Does that name ring a bell?
Yes.
Yes, it does, right? Okay. Now, back to Dr. Walter. Now, before I continue, I'd like to ask, how many of you feel stressed at work? Okay, how many of you know people who are so stressed that they can't sleep at night? Cool. So isn't stress very common? Now, yes. Dr. Walter, in 1915, this was about 100 years ago, he did a study on animals. And he found out that when animals sense that there's a threat, they will go into a response, a physiological response. Their heartbeat goes up, blood moves from the outer parts of the skin into their muscles so that they can fight or they can run away. Various other changes happens. And he calls this a fight or flight response. Now, modern times, we call this stress. So when you talk about stress at the physiological level, this is what you're talking about. So what Dr. Walter found out is that when animals are scared or they sense there's a threat, they go into this response. Then they either fight or they run away. And if they're successful, what happens is that the stress stops. Right? So for them, they have this experience for maybe just a few seconds. Then they're safe. Or just a few minutes. And then they're back to the normal. Now, we as human beings, we have this same response as well. But we have one big problem. And that problem is that our stress never stops. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, think about it. How often do we feel threatened? At work, you're threatened because there's a chance your boss might get mad at you. There's a chance that your competitor will gain an advantage. There's a chance your company will close down. There's a chance you might lose your job. Now, these are serious stuff. These are real threats because you lose your job, you can't pay your bills. Your company closes down, you can't feed your family. Serious stuff. So our body goes into the same fight or flight response because it feels that our life is threatened. The problem is, for us, you go for a meeting, an important meeting next week that you cannot afford to screw up. And then even if you survive, there's another meeting next week, another meeting next month. So for us, we never get out of stress. We're always there, days, months, years. Now, can you imagine what happens if you're in that stressful state for months or for years? What's going to happen? I'm going to show you some symptoms of this, what's happening. For example, your heart beats faster, your lungs work faster. Constriction, dilation of blood vessels. What happens is that when you're in that state, the blood moves from your extremities into your muscles so that you can fight. So that's why you feel so tense, right? So the muscles around your skin will constrict. The muscles in your vital organs, they will dilate, not healthy. You can't sustain it for long, but that's what happens. Dilation of pupils, so you can see clearer. You open your retina. And relaxation of bladder. Now, how many of you have seen movies whereby somebody literally pee in their pants? They're so scared that suddenly, water gushing out like waterfall. Right? Now, that is not a choice. That is a direct reaction of this. You lose bladder control, and you have waterfall everywhere. Auditory exclusion, you lose hearing. This happens. And you also lose your peripheral vision. So those of you who look in front and you can see the sides, you can't. What you have is what they call tunnel vision. You can only see what's in front of you. Your whole digestive system shuts. Oh yeah. Some time back, I was working as a project manager for the United Nations Development Program. and we did a project with Meng, right? So it was very, very crazy. So every morning I wake up in the morning, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had start thinking about work. Oh, this cannot go wrong, this cannot go wrong, because we're doing international projects. Eh? So one morning, I went to work, and Jalan Dungun, if those of you know Wisma UN, had breakfast, nasi lemak, sambal, teh tarik, and took the first scoop of my nasi lemak and sambal, put it in my mouth, and suddenly, guess what happened? No taste. First time in my life, you put something in your mouth, you bite, and there's no taste. First time happened. Digestive system, total shutdown. What happens is that the upper part of your intestines will stop, your peristalsis system will stop, all the way up to your digestive system. It's very, very crazy. Because there's a few other things that's happening as well. Your sex life will go down. You won't work, you won't function in this case. So, a few other things happens. Now, can you imagine what happens if this goes on every day, every week, every month, every year? You're going to get something like
Cancer.
What? Cancer, yes. You're going to get what? Heart, hypertension. You're going to get things like what? Depression, mental breakdown. It's serious stuff, and this can kill you. So if you have families, you have people that you love, this can take you away from them. So you really, really do need to manage your stress. Now, the good thing is, stress management is very easy. There are many easy techniques, which I will teach in my next class, same time, same place, next week. So please come. For today, we are going to focus on just one part of it, which we call stress testing. How do you know you're stressed? Because most people, when they're stressed, they don't know. Hey, you crazy? Why you work so hard? Oh, I'm okay, I'm okay. Hey, you tak tidur? Hey, I'm okay, I'm okay. Hey, have you known of people like this? They're so clearly that they're stressed, but they deny that they're stressed, right? So one way for you to test is what I'm going to show you afterwards. Introduction to stress testing. Now this is a non-medical type. There's a few different types, including a medical type they call cardiac stress testing. Right? This is a non-medical type. The first one is called Holmes and Rahe Stress Scale. These two guys, they're psychiatrists from the University of Washington in US. What they did is that they did a research, and a survey-based research, and they interviewed people, and they came up with 43 different stresses, what they call stresses. Stresses are things that actually cause you stress. And then they put a numerical value to it. So what happens is that you can take a survey based on this scale and answer all those questions. At the end of it, they'll tell you your total, and then you can know at what level your stress is. Now, guess, 43. What's the top one? First one, the main stressor. Who can guess? Close, but not quite. Work? No.
Financial.
Nah. The first one is the death of your spouse. Husband died, wife died, way up. Second one, divorce. Number 7, marriage. Number 8 is where you get sacked from your work, you lost your job. And number 10, which was surprising to me at least, number 10 out of the 43, retirement. Those who retire, they face a lot of stress. Right? And that explains why some people, after they retire, they throw scone. This is a technical term, it means that you just kick the bucket. Okay, that's the first one. So what you do is that you go online and you do a search for this, and you'll find many, many different surveys. Some are more simplified, but some are more detailed. You go through the survey form, hit the button, and it'll give you that result. It's very easy. Number 2, using stress sensor tests. Now, this is a stress sensor test. This is a stress sensor. You see the black square here? This sensor detects temperature. What happens is that when you have this fight or flight response, the blood from the tip of your skin goes into your muscles, into your vital organs. And when the blood vessels constrict, the temperature goes down because the blood goes inside. Right? So this measures the temperature. There are literature reviews in scientific journals, established scientific journals, that talks about this correlation between temperature and stress. Okay, so what I'm going to teach is this. This is how to use a stress sensor. It's very easy. First, right thumb on the sensor. This has to be done at the room temperature. Breathe in for 5 seconds. Breathe out. Remove. Take a look. It's not that clear. Why? because we are not at room temperature. The aircon is too cold. Okay, so which is why there's a qualifier of room temperature, right? Now, once you have that, what you do is you compare it with a color chart, and you can tell you where you are at that time. Okay, so just very quickly, again, thumb on sensor, breathe in 5 seconds, breathe out 5 seconds, remove, look, compare with the chart. It gives you a good indication at your stress level. Okay. Now, there's another one that I mentioned just now, which is called the arm drop. Okay, the reason why I'm telling all this is because at least you have a rounded picture of how stress testing goes. The arm drop technique is very simple. You sit down, like, and then what you do is that you put your hand on your lap, you have a friend lift your hand up. For example, and then you let go. See? Now, if you try this participant, if you don't mind. Now, do you notice a difference? What's the difference, Ms. Tipa?
One drops faster, the other one a bit slower.
Excellent. And the reason why one drops slower is because the muscles are tense. So if you're really, really relaxed, your arm will drop like a ton of bricks. Okay? Right, so that's how you can also test. And there's a few other ways. You can test with temperature between your skin and your neck and stuff like that. Okay. So, just to make sure that I've covered the objectives. In these 15 minutes, are you now able, if given a stress sensor, to perform a stress test on your own, without errors, at room temperature? Yes?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? Good. So to summarize, we began with the introduction of stress management. A very, very simple introduction, no doubt, but still an overview. And we went on to focus on stress testing, right? And then we did a brief overview of the effects of stress. Now this is very important because many people, they have no idea how much stress is affecting their lives, their work, their love life, their family, their relationship, and tons of other stuff. Right? And then we went on to explain the ways to test for stress using non-medical methods, very simple methods that is quite cheap and quite easy to do. These sensors, I bought these from the US, right, these strips. And finally, we did a demonstration of the stress sensor and also the arm drop. Okay, so that is my presentation, and thank you for listening. And now I'd like to open the floor for discussions. Yes.